Top 5 best drafts. This is, again, my opinion, but let's go to number 5. We just talked about it a little bit, the Houston Texans. I said it the other day. I love what they did in the first round. I like them getting aggressive. I agree with what David just said in that most years, if you have 2 and 12, the thing is they could have kept their strategy and they could have taken, C.J. Stroud at 2. They could have taken Christian Gonzalez or somebody at 12. And then if they needed an edge rusher, then you can get, one of those guys at 33 where they were that was pretty highly thought of. But you know what? That's not what they did. They got aggressive and added Will Anderson. But it's not just that I really liked about their draft. I really liked Tank Dell in the 3rd round at the 69th pick. Henry To'o, the linebacker from Alabama. They got him in the 5th round. And Xavier Hutchinson in the 6th round at 205. I think that's an incredible value for a guy with as much production as Xavier Hutchinson has. I really like what they did all the way up and down. Look, they drafted 2 centers. One of them could also play guard, Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame. But Juice Scruggs in the 2nd round, also a really good player coming out of Penn State. I think for the first time, even after they drafted Deshaun Watson, I didn't think the things they did subsequently were really all that great. I think this is they are actually on a bit of an upward climb. I think so, especially if C.J. Stroud works out. And I also think they handled it masterfully with, convincing everybody that they weren't going to do exactly what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very exciting start to the draft. I don't know how much, the convincing needed to be done. That's never made sense, all the rumors about them moving off the way they did. But, I mean, it was played well. They got what they wanted, obviously, in the end. But I don't see the sense in some of that sometimes. And it didn't make a lot of sense. But, no, I mean, I really liked their class. I mean, I'm not a draft analyst that's compared them across the league to everybody. But on paper, it certainly seems like they got receivers, and they needed receivers. They got a quarterback. They needed a quarterback. They got an edge rusher. They needed a pass rusher. Seems like they pretty much got everything they needed to start this D'Amico Ryans era. On paper, it looks good. Let's see what he does with it. But he's an exciting guy, and I'm thrilled to see what Jalen Petrie can do under him, and now joined by some other star players as well.
Yeah, I think Jalen Petrie with D'Amico Ryans is going to be really fun to watch. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. Stayed pat. Like, they didn't move around. They had 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 4s, 2 5s. I mean, so they stayed where they were, and they didn't move around early. But Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, very much a Seattle Seahawks-looking corner. Jackson Smith-Njigba at 20, the best route runner in the draft. And the wide receivers held on for a while, and then they had that run of 4 in a row. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the one who we'll see. He might be the best of all of them. I think he was the highest rated going in. Getting Derek Hall in the 2nd round, edge rusher out of Auburn. Zach Charbonnet. Yes, they already have Kenneth Walker, but he missed a ton of time last year hurt. So they get back to being what Pete Carroll likes. It's a team with a ton of good running backs that you can roll through. Anthony Bradford, guard from LSU. Garrett, him, really good, good player. Really all their first, I want to say 6 or 7 picks have a chance to start within a year or two. And I think that's really good. And they've got a good organization there. They didn't draft a quarterback. A lot of people thought that they might. And I think that they let that float out there so that maybe they could get some intriguing trade offers. Never happened for them, but they've got Geno Smith coming off a career year. And everything set up around him looks pretty good on both sides of the ball for the Seahawks to make a run in the NFC West, which in a side of the conference, everything's wide open.
Well, they're clearly building around Geno, at least for the time being. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think people got as excited about the back half of their draft as the first half of it, but who often does? I mean, the first half's got all the star players, and as far as that goes, I mean, getting Zach Charbonnet, getting Jackson Smith-Njigba, getting Devin Witherspoon, Derek Hall, I mean, that's a pretty good little haul right there. So, I think you have to be excited about what they did, especially early.
Yeah. Number 3, this one was, look, and I think you can maybe question the first pick, but he is the combine monster, and we'll see what they can do. And let's see if Shane Steichen can develop into Anthony Richardson. But everything they did after that sets them up in case he doesn't work out, to me, to be able to maybe put somebody else in. But they pray that Anthony Richardson works out. Love Julius Brents from Kansas State. Big, long corner. Really thought he I was kind of hoping the Cowboys would get a crack at him because he feels to me like a Dan Quinn guy. Josh Downs is an excellent wide receiver for North Carolina. In the third round, Blake Freeland from BYU, really good offensive tackle. Adewabore from Northwestern. It was a guy who's really tested out well. Cornerback again at Darius Rush from South Carolina. Will Mallory at tight end, really good. Jalen Jones in the 7th round.
A kid from A&M?
A&M, who was pretty highly thought of in some circles. Him. And Jake Witt, one of the guys we had on the show from Northern Michigan, was their last pick in the 7th round. Like what the Colts did, they used all their draft picks really, really well. I think – they're setting their team up to be young and aggressive, and hopefully by the time Anthony Richardson starts, for their sake and all the Colts fans' sake, they're going to be good and ready to go. Yeah,
they addressed a lot of needs. You see what Shane Steichen can do with it, but this all revolves around Anthony Richardson to me. That's what we're going to remember this draft for. Other guys might become stars, and then we remember back 10 years from now on. Remember that 23 draft when the Colts drafted so-and-so in the 3rd or whatever, but odds are we're probably talking about Anthony Richardson and whether he was the right pick and how he compared to those around him and what a ballsy move to go get the dude who's now a huge star, or what a stupid move to bank on athleticism as being like the draw to making you pull the trigger on that. I don't know. That's the fun part about the draft is none of us really do. But we do get entertained by the big risks that these guys take, and often those end up relating to their job security. So Anthony Richardson's a big deal for a lot of people involved, and just ready to sit back like everybody else and see whether he lives up to the billing or what ends up happening with him.
All right, so let me ask you this: who has been in the last, let's say, 20 years, who has been Anthony Richardson coming out of college that was talented, physically a specimen that made it, or someone who came out and did not? Like Jamarcus Russell, which has been about 20 years at LSU. Just no way.
Yeah. Jamarcus Russell also got bit by the dumbass bug too, which I don't think that
the codeine bug.
Yeah, that Anthony Richardson did. I would say that if you are, especially if you're looking at right now, and he's probably benefited from the fact that Justin Fields just had an excellent year, really, even a bad team, like more than anybody thought was going to come out of him because they figured out how to use him the right way in Chicago. Already, you've got quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts who. Is maybe one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league anyway, and the hardest working. But he's in that offense like Shane Steichen, and then you have Lamar Jackson who plummeted in the draft, but Lamar Jackson's been wildly successful, and that I think that's what they're kind of hoping from
Newton?
Anthony Richardson.
Cam Newton, the physical, someone different.
I don't think of him.
I don't think so, man. I think Cam Newton was a pretty sure deadgum thing, unless I'm remembering incorrectly. But I feel like he was a pretty well thought of commodity. I think the guy who would be interesting to compare him to is Will Levis, because there's somebody who didn't rise because of traits. He fell because of various traits. So, how those two stack up in the future, I think will be really interesting because they went completely opposite directions and were part of that initial, quarterback grouping. So, I don't know, but and maybe I'm wrong on Cam. I just feel like he was a big star and everybody kind of expected him to be a star. But Lamar, he was somebody that there was definitely doubts about. And, a lot of those have been proven wrong, or some are still hanging on to him.
Yeah. Number 2, the Philadelphia Eagles. And I would have put them number 1 except for my number 1 team, who I thought really just
Florida State number 1?
No, okay. No. Well, they only had one player in the draft, Jamie Robinson. And he only played there a year. But Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, right off the bat, to get Nolan Smith at 30, to get Jalen Carter at 9, and then to get Sidney Brown, who might be the best safety in the draft, in the 3rd round, and then Keely Ringo, a guy who's starting the year, everybody thought he was going to be the guy picked 5th, like Devin Witherspoon. Now, look, those things happen for a reason, but to be able to get him in the 4th and then let him learn behind Darius Slay and guys like that for a year and then maybe take over, really great overall. The Eagles just continue to kill it in every aspect of everything. And
they got Swift.
Yeah, they got DeAndre
Another
Swift.
Running back.
And I'll throw this out there. He may not even make the team, but one of their undrafted free agents is Eli Ricks, who was one of the highest recruited players in the country when he came out, played at LSU and Alabama. They've got him on that roster, too.
Yeah, that's great. I will also say, though, I saw a lot of people celebrating that. They passed on him how many times?
Yeah.
And every other team passed on him how many times? So there was a reason for that. But, yeah, as an undrafted guy, he might be a nice diamond in the rough. But there also was a reason that 32 teams multiple times apiece said, no, we're going to go with somebody else. But, yeah, that could be a good after the draft signing.
259 times.
Right.
Passed on him, yeah.
And Philadelphia, yeah, they just, man, your texts to us were funny. Like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my Eagles. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, number 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this, to me, value for value, guys are going to be starters really soon. Broderick Jones is going to start at tackle for them this year. Joey Porter is going to start at cornerback for them this year, at least in the top 3. Keanu Benton, defensive tackle from Wisconsin. Go watch him and tell me that's not a Pittsburgh freaking Steeler right there. Just built for what they do forever. And he's going to get to play next to Cam Hayward. That's a lot of human being just between two guys. Then Darnell Washington just falls in their lap at 93 because of medical concerns. And that was a guy I really wanted the Cowboys to draft, but all of a sudden they care about people's knees. They drafted a linebacker with freaking drop foot a few years ago, but, you know, a tight end whose knees are swelling, that's something else. I don't know. But Darnell Washington fell to them. Nick Herbig, outside linebacker from Wisconsin, fits in that defense really well. And Corey Trice, cornerback from Purdue, really only fell because he had some nagging injury issues, over the last couple years, but tested out really well, and again, really fits into what they do. So they've got, I think, 6 starters in this draft right off the bat, and pound for pound, to me, the best one that they had. And the Steelers are starting to look like the Steelers again when it comes to building their team. And if Kenny Pickett hits, man, we could be talking about.
They're always good about letting the draft come to them. The Cowboys have started to do that a little bit, in recent years have had success. Some
and
schools
they did trade up
programs
to get Broderick Jones because they recognized the need, but still came out with Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, and Darnell Washington, their first 4 picks.
So it's a conspiracy. Joey Porter, no one was going to pick him, right, because they wanted him to go to Pittsburgh. No other teams. And Deuce Vaughn went 6+ rounds or nearly 5+ rounds, and nobody was going to steal him away from the Cowboys because of the emotions, right?
Well, Joey Porter Jr. and Nolan Smith will pretty much determine how people feel about Mozzie Smith. Like, those are the 2 guys that he really has to outplay. And maybe to an extent, Michael Mayer, who a lot of Cowboys fans are excited about, who fell several picks later into the second round. But, other than that, those are the 2 guys that he's going to have to outplay for Cowboys fans at least. But, we'll see.
I wouldn't look back at some of the Cam Newton talk. I feel like most of the criticism he got, just to follow back up on that, was his personality. I think that was most. Yeah. I don't think it was really about his game. One of the things I'm reading, it's all about his personality and not anything about his actual game. So that was. I know some of that was with Levis too. There was the comment about a little bit of arrogance on his part, but yeah, Anthony Richardson seems like a boomer bust type of pick the way it's been presented. So we'll see whether he booms or busts, just like every other player in this draft and every other quarterback for that.